Hey guys, how's it going? Back today with another movie review. I'm finishing off the Resident Evil franchise. Thank God. Feels like it took forever to get through these movies, especially the downfall of the quality in the series. So today we're looking at the sixth film, Resident Evil The Final Chapter, which is an overused horror title, which was released in 2016 and stars Mila Jovovich, Ian Glenn, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. So this movie is about Alice, who has 48 hours to get to the Hive and stop the Umbrella Corporation from wiping out the rest of the human survivors, which is around 4,000 and some they mentioned. I don't know how they got those numbers, but now I try to be optimistic with this movie when it was released. I remember Mila Jovovich doing advertisements and that saying that since this is the last one, it's going to be the biggest one of them all, the scariest. They're going back to their horror roots. They're going back to the Hive, all this stuff, and I was slightly optimistic. I knew how shitty this franchise has become, so I didn't really get my hopes up. But I was like, I'll still take everything she said with a grain of salt and just check out the movie for myself. Now, starting off with the positives, there's not many, but there's a few. The first positive is that this is the last installment in this franchise. No, just kidding there, but I found the premise was pretty cool. The going back to the start, going back to the Hive where the first movie took place. I thought that was a good idea. It just wasn't executed properly. But their idea was good, and going back to Raccoon City, that's what we all wanted to see. For another positive, there's a battle at the tower right before the Hive. I think that was done fairly well, even though it seemed like it was made more for TV, like a Walking Dead episode finale or something like that. Which, in this big budget final installment of a horror action franchise, you would think that they would have upped the stakes just a little more. Makes it all feel quite underwhelming, to be honest. There's one redeeming scene with Dr. Isaac's clone, who is like a religious cult nut, and he has this huge tank with a bunch of like prisoners inside, he's supposed to be their leader, and Alice runs into them, and she becomes one of the prisoners, and I just like that idea of him being a religious like cult leader. It was just really refreshing to see in this overdone franchise. Which is kind of sad because he's really the only character that I liked in this whole movie. I don't really care about anybody else in this movie, but he got one redeeming character, and it's cool with his tank. He drags people behind and forces them to walk while being chained to it, and it attracts groups of walls and groups of zombies. Which brings me to another positive is the look of the zombies. When they're regular zombies, they look pretty great. It's almost like Walking Dead style. It's the best since Part 3, Extinction. And I found they got that down pat. And one last thing is the fighting scenes. There's one near the end where they have this predictive combat programming. The main Dr. Isaacs. And he can see percentages of different things he can do. Like take a pen and stab Alice or whatever. And I thought that was pretty cool and unique. That something we never seen before in these movies. Which... They get pretty repetitive after a while with their ideas going through, especially being the sixth movie. Now that's pretty much all the positives I can come up with, and it was really hard to come up with those ones. I really had to stretch my belief in the storyline and this is an awful movie, so let's just get right into the negatives. Where do we start? The biggest negative of this movie is the storyline. It's a complete mess. They actually screw up all the movies from this point on and make none of them make sense. The logic's just gone. For instance, Umbrella states that they started the apocalypse. No, they didn't. What about Spence in the first movie? They state that the virus was created by like a different guy who had a daughter who ends up being Alice in the end. Like, none of this makes sense because Apocalypse already set up that the doctor in the wheelchair who had that disease and wanted to make sure his daughter Angie, or Angela, I think her name was, he made the T-virus as a cure for her, and she had to keep injecting the antivirus to make sure that she stayed stable. Right off the bat, this movie starts with false promises because the last movie ended with the White House surrounded by thousands and thousands of zombies, different creatures coming and everything, and this one starts with none of that. It's just Alice by herself walking around not far from the White House, but It really just feels like they really cheated you at the beginning of this one. And you really just can't keep track of who's good and who's bad anymore. Like every movie it changes. Wesker was good in Retribution, bad all before that. This movie is back to being bad and saying that he was never good, that he was just tricking Alice and he just pretended to give back her powers, which is bullshit cuz when he put in the needle in her neck, you seen the virus go back into her and get her powers back. So all that's just bullshit. It's as if this guy never watched any of his movies before he made this one. You got the Red Queen working with Alice in this one for the first time, where she says her logic to that is that Umbrella is going to wipe out all of humankind, which she ain't going to have because then she'll lose Umbrella. And it's in her system to make sure Umbrella survives. The company will survive. And she also states that she cannot kill Umbrella employees, which is complete bullshit. The whole first movie, she kills all Umbrella employees. That's all she does. Talking about other characters, we lose Ada, we lose Leon, all the ones from Retribution not mentioned, they're just gone. We get Claire back from last time we seen her was Afterlife. And really, she's just a shoo-in, it's for no reason. She's not exciting, or she's not bad either, but she's just there. Another negative, and then there's so many. They say the virus is airborne. Well, if it's airborne, wouldn't everybody be infected? Because at the end, they're going to release the antivirus airborne and it's supposed to clear everything up. I just don't understand. If everybody's already infected, then when they die, they should turn into zombies. But that's not the case either. So, holes in your story everywhere. And when Mila Jovovich promised that this was the scariest entry yet, I don't know if that's a true statement. Even though all of these aren't really scary, I still say that the first one did it the best. That or the third. This movie it's just dark scenes or jump scares. And the jump scares aren't done well at all. You see them coming a mile away. And it's usually a CGI looking, computer generated, shitty, sci-fi fucking monster that's jumping out. It's not scary at all. So let's get into the creatures. The creature designs are okay enough, but like I said, it's all CGI. It's like bad CGI too. Retribution had the best CGI in the franchise. What the hell happened to this one? That was the 5th film. This is the 6th film. We're gone back to like 2002 CGI. And this looks like something straight off the Sci-Fi Network, which don't have this type of budget, which I find doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Go practical if your CGI looks shitty. And the dogs are one of those bad creatures. They have like holes through them and that, but man, it's like someone just made it on a cheap program on their computer. And as for the plot, it moves because of coincidences. For example, they get to the hive, and they're right away. Wesker's like, turn on the security. It's like, why wouldn't that already be on? Doesn't make no sense. They get to the main doors. The dogs are chasing them. They stop and turn back. They say, why did the dog stop? And they're like, they must be scared. They must know not to go any farther. They work for Umbrella. Wouldn't they go in? And they're already dead. Yeah, and the hive doors start shutting right when they get there. They're like, shut the doors. Why isn't that shit already shut? Nothing makes any sense. It's just there for them to get in instead of them having to get in a more fashionable way. They just do it the easy way and just write it off. Oh, the door was open. Oh, the dog stopped chasing. Oh, security systems are only on now. Like I said, just coincidence after coincidence to get them to where they have to be. It's just bad writing. That's bad screenplay writing right there. Now, if you're not going to focus on your horror aspects, your action better be kick-ass. This movie, it isn't. In Retribution, it was butchered by Slowmo, all their action. It looked pretty good, but every scene was almost done in slow-mo. This movie is as if he heard the complaints about slow-mo and said, okay, and just cut it up so fast and put it all together where it's like shot there, shot there, shot there, shot there. And this is very noticeable when Alice is hanging by like the overpass, the highway, and 4 or 5, I don't know how many Umbrella employees come in to take her out, and she's fighting them upside down, and it's literally, you can't see anything that's going on. The camera's just moving all over the place, cutting every 2 seconds, and it's awful. It's an abomination. Just do real-time fighting, like in the style like John Wick or something, and this would have been great. Lastly, I just want to mention how Alice is really the Red Queen and all this shit. And none of it makes any sense. They say she doesn't have her memory because she's a clone and she was created at the mansion, and that's why she can't remember anything before that. Bullshit. The first movie explained that the gas that came out gave her memory loss. What about Spence? It never mentioned Spence, and that also pisses me off. Oh, this movie. So it feels like the team behind this whole franchise, just pretty much got lazy and punched out after the third movie. Paul W.S. Anderson is so full of himself, and I don't know if it's because he's married to Mila Jovovich that the stories turn out the way they did. This movie has the poorest screenwriting, the action's pretty bad, the direction is awful, and so is the CGI. It's just terrible. The movie's not scary one bit, and the action is vomit-inducing at times. The ending is even set up to have like an emotional pull, and you're supposed to feel at the end, and it completely fails. And that has to do with everything mixed together, all the negatives I just said. It's just such a bummer that this is how the franchise had to end, on the way it started on such a high note. So this is just an anticlimactic ending to a franchise that started off pretty strong. So in the end, I'm giving this movie a 3 out of 10. It's terrible, and you should stay away from this one. If you're going to be watching this franchise, stick with the first 3 movies, and you're warned to not go past that. Whew, well, that's it. Thank God I'm done this franchise. Now I can get to doing a ranking video on this, so be sure to wait to see when that comes out. And time to move on to bigger, better things. Thanks for watching, and that's it for today.